we go. And this Hangout on Air is live. We are live and direct. We're doing some fun shenanigans. We may be live on Alpha Geek Radio and Alpha Geek Video shortly, depending on what Steve tells me here. We're waiting for Brian Brushwood to get off the air. Heck, I can yap. I guess since they won all those podcast awards, you know. To those in the live chat room now, Kirshen's talking about Clockwise. It's a Jason Snell, Dan Morin, I think is the other guy. Podcast. It's really, really good. It's very crisp. It's like I actually like Leo shows, but take those and do the opposite. They're crisp. They're to the point. They've got script. They've got a definite format. They go exactly 30 minutes every time. So they're really, really good shows. And I'm going to be on Clockwise, and Jason Snell is going to be on my show. So we're going to have a little fun there. All right, it is time for roll call. How's Alpha Geek Radio doing, Steve? Steve.
Hold on.
Okay. All right. Yes, I'm wearing a DTNS shirt on purpose. I'm wearing my DTNS colors because they just won Best Tech Podcast. How cool is that? All right. Let's see. Let's do a little roll call. We've got Donald and Steve and Brett and Dan and Steven. And Kirshen is back. Hadn't been here a long time. Michael King and John and Shai and another Steve. You ready on Alpha Geek Radio, Steve?
I think you're live video, Alpha Geek, but not yet audio.
That's because I haven't pushed the button because you didn't tell me you were ready.
Because they haven't cleared yet.
Oh, but they did clear on video?
Correct.
Oh.
So you're about to be live on video, if not now, on Alpha Geek.
Okay, so somebody go to Alpha Geek Radio. Well, how do they find it, Steve?
It's alphageekradio.com, channel 3.
So Alpha Geek, no, but to see the video.
There are 3 channels in the homepage.
Should find us. Okay, so I should be live. Actually, Steve, you are live on Alpha Geek Radio, to tell you the truth. Are you ready to be muted off? Steve.
Yes.
You aren't answering me.
I've got a couple feeds. What was your question?
Are you ready to be turned off?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I need somebody to tell me. Okay, I'm cutting Steve off, and Steve, you will now be available on chat. Still need to tell me when to go live on audio, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you when, but right now they're still on audio. We are live video Alpha Geek.
Okay, cool. Can you see it?
Yes.
Live video Alpha Geek Radio. How exciting is that? And by the way, available on Roku, I think, right, Steve?
Yes. They have an app on the Roku.
You need to run downstairs during the show and see if you can see us on the Roku. I guess I can't run down and see it. Take a picture of the screen for me with your phone later. All right. Go ahead and let me know in the chat room if you when they get off on Alpha Geek Radio. So on audio. All right. Goodbye, Steve.
Goodbye.
Hide from broadcast. All right. We are live here now. Okay. Looks like the video is working. Cool. Has anybody looked on Alpha Geek Radio? Is that where you're saying it's working, Shai? Yeah. Open channel 3, I think. I haven't actually ever done it myself. Live video on the radio. Yeah, we're breaking stuff now. All right, let me do a little sound check on GarageBand while we're waiting to find out whether that's all working. Here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com. Yes, Steve, I see you writing to me. You wrote Podfeet. I see it. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com. All right, that looked like it broadcast everywhere. Everybody heard playback? Second behind the website. Phil, listening to a very weird stereo. On air, NosillaCast. Oh, look at that. Air NosillaCast. All right, cool. Alpha Geek Radio just announced it. AGR audio ready. Good. All right, here we go. And now we are live on Alpha Geek Radio audio and video and a Google Hangout Air. And we got a live chat room. We're doing everything here. And yeah, we've got, there's an echo. Your AGR video is stretched. Interesting. Okay. There's an echo for Kirshen. Anybody else hearing an echo? Or is it just because you've got the Google Hangout Air, the website, and Alpha Geek Radio video going? I hope that is that. Or you're hearing two audio feeds. Let's see. Kirshen was saying she heard an echo. Is it because you've got two things playing, Steve, that you've got Alpha Geek Radio playing? Steve? Shai had two streams. Turned off the website video. Okay, so now you've just got one, or is anybody else hearing double? I'm going to go ahead and start a little bit. Okay, Shai had two streams going at the same time. Okay, I think that's probably it, I hope. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start recording a little bit. Video and audio are ever so slightly out of sync. Okay, that was for YouTube. That's what I thought. Okay, good. That's good. All right, here we go. We got to get started. We got a big show tonight. Luckily, we messed something up, and it's not going to be as bad as I thought. It was going to be really long. It's still really long. All right, here we go. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Macintosh bias. Today is Sunday, April 19th, 2015, and this is show number 519. I think we're going to have a marathon show this week. Steve and I went to a conference, so we've got some discussion about that. We were going to play some interviews, but I think the show's actually going to be too long. So we're going to skip over those, but I promise to get into them starting next week. I'm going to give you my thoughts about the new Photos app and what I've decided to do about it. And we've got a security light and chit chat across the pond with Taming the Terminal, part 32 of M, where we get to do SSH tunneling. Oh man, this is going to be fun. So I think it is going to be a long show. So I hope you guys have some time to listen. Well, this week was the NAB show, National Association of Broadcasters, and NMX, which used to be known as New Media Expo, but I think they're just calling it NMX. And they were both out in Las Vegas at the same time. So Steve and I got to attend both. We've been to NMX and its previous incarnations of the Podcast Expo and Blog World many times, but this was the first time NMX was actually embedded inside NAB.
Todd's not getting the audio feed is not. You might want to try.
Okay, let me see. Steve says Todd is not getting the audio. Okay, just it might be that butt messed up and oh no, it does still say it's still connecting. Okay, we have to force quit. But Alpha Geek Radio is not coming through
for audio.
Yeah. Okay, let's try this again. Let me make sure. So my audio is working there. Let me make sure settings. Channel. It changes by itself, please. Okay. I hit. That's right. Okay. Try it again, and we'll hit play again. And connection established. That might have done it this time. All right. Rose is here. Rose, you were supposed to get here early and save a seat for Kevin in the snarky row. All right. All right, here we go. It was Chuck Joyner of MacVoices.tv who suggested it might be interesting for us to go. He'd been to NAB many times before and got a lot out of it. Dave Hamilton of the Mac Observer and Mac Geek Gab decided to go too, and then Don McAllister of Screencast Online jumped in as well. Remember when we used to do the Mac Roundtable? Well, it was originally started by four guys, Tim Verporten, Adam Christensen, Steve Stanger, and Joseph Nilo. We'd only met Joseph once before at Macworld, and we were delighted to find out that he was going to NAB too. Now, if that doesn't sound like a party, I don't know what does. I do have to confess that we sort of meant to do a Mac Roundtable. We were there, and then we kind of didn't get around to it. But, oh well, that's the way these things go. Now, I want to say, first of all, that I think we've outgrown NMX. It sounds snarky to say that I have nothing to learn from the speakers there. I decided a few years ago that the solution was not to expect to learn, but to give back and teach. However, they've rejected my talks for the last 2 years. I was really bummed about that because you know how much I love to teach. I did feel a little bit better when Don got his rejection notice because he didn't even submit a paper and they rejected him. Oh well, that's the way it goes. Anyway, the exhibit hall for NMX the last time we went was really, really weak. It was like maybe 20 booths tops, and none of them were interesting back then. The good news is that with the purchase of an NMX ticket this year, we got access to all of the NAB booths. Believe it or not, NAB fills the Las Vegas Convention Center, North, Central, and South halls. Now, CES fills those three giant halls, but also spills out in other hotels. But it kind of gives you an idea that NAB is pretty darn huge if it can fill all those halls. I should say that there was something great in the NMX booth this year. We had Boinks, the people who make Boinks.tv and iStop Motion and oh shoot, what's the name of the our favorite tool, Dorothy? I'm going to have to come back to it when Dorothy reminds me. The slideshow tool that Steve likes. And anyway, we had a really good time hanging out with the Boinks people. So it actually was really great for that, but not too much else. There was a Telestream booth there, but not too much else in NMX. But let's get back to NAB because that's where we spent most of our time. The downside of NAB is that much of the equipment software is way out of our league. For example, the bottom of the line Red camera starts at $5,000, but the model they were showing off at NAB starts at $50,000. We went over to the huge Blackmagic booth who sell interface boxes for video and audio, but all but 2 of the boxes were over $2,000. Not exactly what we're looking for, but keep in mind this show is geared towards people making television and movies. Photomagico, thank you. Late breaking from the chat room. Dorothy and Steve just reminded me Photomagico is the tool I was trying to remember from Boinks. Anyway, those guys are awesome. Oliver and Akim and Bastian, just a lot of good fun. All right. Anyway, back to NAB again. The good news is the good nose. Good nose. Back to Back to NAB, though. The good news is that with a show this big, there's an awful lot within the podcaster's salary level to enjoy. Steve and I did about a dozen interviews, so not quite. Wait, there's more than a dozen. How many did you do, Steve? I'm going to take both these back. About 15. Okay, so a dozen isn't too far off if we decide to blow a couple of them off. The good news is that with a show this big, there's still an awful lot. You know what? Stop. Back. Wait, breaking news. This just in from the live chat room. Dorothy and Steve are telling me it's Photomagico that we got from Boinks and how much we both love that. We all love that tool. Anyway, we had a lot of fun hanging out with Oliver and Akim and Bastian, and definitely was worth going to NMX to see their booth and to talk to those guys. All right, back to NAB again. The good news is that with a show this big, there's still an awful lot within the podcaster's salary level to enjoy. Steve and I did about, 12 or 15 interviews, so not quite as many as CES, but I think we got some real keepers in there. We're going to start playing them a couple at a time like we did for CES, again, starting next week, but some of those videos are already up on podfeet.com if you want to go see them. I have to give a big shout out to Alan Tepper from Techno Tour because I did the worst possible thing to him. Remember I asked on the show if anyone else was going to be there? Well, Alan wrote to me to tell me he'd be at NAB, and then he recognized me as we were both going into an event called the Super Meet. He introduced himself, but then right then the line we'd been waiting in started to move, and he was a few people back from me, and I said, I'll catch up with you inside. And guess what? Totally forgot to go find him. I couldn't believe it. I didn't even remember that I blew him off until like 4 days after the show. I think I might be the worst person ever. He found Don inside the hall, and they had a great conversation, so at least he had fun. I wanted to mention another thing about NMX before I move on, and that's that the podcast awards took place. I didn't attend the award ceremony, but I'm delighted to tell you that Tom Merritt's Daily Tech News Show won for Best Tech Show overall. That is a huge achievement considering it hasn't been much more than a year since he started his show. Many congratulations to Tom and his producer, Jenny, for a very well-deserved award. I also want to say that it was a lot of fun hanging out with Jamal and Rob Dunwood of the SMR podcast during one of the parties. I had totally forgotten that Rob was going to be there, but luckily he remembered that I was going to be there, and he looked for me at the party, and so we did get to hang out, and that was really, really cool. I have only met him once before, met Rod a couple times from SMR podcast, and never met Chris Ashley, but it is going to happen. All right, that's going to be kind of a weird ending there with Steve. And I just realized that we forgot to do the audio portion so that I could play the audio recordings. That's not why they're not doing it. You're starting to notice video freezes a fraction of a second. All right, $5,000, your next bike. Interesting. So people are getting lag. All right, let's see. Here we go. Last week, OS 10.10.3 was released, and with it, the production version of Photos. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of background for those who might not be watching every single little bitty detail about this as closely as most people might, or as many people might be. There's been a lot of press about it, but I want to give you my perspective, but I think it's mean to jump in without explaining what I'm talking about. Photos is intended to replace both iPhoto for the casual photographer and Aperture, which is used by professional photographers and pretenders like me. Apple has discontinued Aperture and iPhoto, but like with many of their dramatic application changes, users can continue to use these deprecated applications at least through the life of Yosemite. Much gnashing of teeth has taken place by Aperture users over the last year since Apple announced this change, and many have taken the leap to move over to Adobe's Lightroom. When it was first announced, moving from Aperture to Lightroom was a nightmare, but over time, I believe Adobe has worked hard to help smooth that path. If you want to learn more about the process, Alistair Jenks has been keeping us posted over in our Google Plus community on his very measured exercise to see if Lightroom is going to work for him. Luckily for me, he's also experimenting with Photos because he's thinking about a way to maybe separate things that he could carry his portfolio with him on his iPhone and his iPad using Photos, but still use Lightroom for the heavy lifting. I have to tell you, though, I am not ready to abandon Apple. I know it's wonderful over in Lightroom land, Mark, but there's a reason I chose Apple early on, and it's because I really enjoy the tight integration with the operating system and all of my devices. I am hopeful that photos will come up to my needs over time. The lure of all my photos existing on all my devices all of the time is just too cool to pass up. I've been able to sit on the sidelines and watch the fray as people did the teeth gnashing and ran the beta and basically take no action on my part. But 10.10.3's release forced me to take action one way or the other. Forced in the sense that if I stick with my early adopter status, I must take the jump. I want to talk a little bit about how you use the old tools and how that really matters in this discussion. It seems to me that each of us should look at this relative to how we use those old tools. I imagine myself this high-tech photographic editor, but in reality, I do not use the high-end features terribly often like people like Bart do. I have bought a lot of plugins to enhance my photos when people like Shy are on the show telling me about cool plugins. And while they're swell and do some really cool stuff, I just don't do it all that often. High-intensity editing of my photos doesn't actually make me that happy. What does make me happy is when I document our life, and that means more volume and less epic photos, I guess. I took thousands of photos in India, for example. I kept multiple hundreds of them, and I will save as special memories probably more than 100. I may want to take special care with a dozen at the absolute outside, maybe a half a dozen. I needed to know, though, what exactly I would really use if I missed. That didn't make any sense. And Steve's asking me something. Seeing significant lag. Steve Photoshop. Let's see. Steve is saying something to me here. Significant lag between your audio and video on the Google Plus feed. Both your side. Yeah. I don't know what I can do about that. I have no idea. I have no control over by lag. Now, do you mean a disconnect? Let's see. Let me make sure Crash Plan isn't running. It's about the only thing I can check. And I definitely quit Photos to make sure Photos wasn't doing it. No, I mean auto sync with video. Yeah. Last backup was 2 minutes ago. That's probably a bad thing. Let me know if it gets better. That's about the only thing I can do. Are you running Crash Plan, Steve? I mean, that's got to. I don't have any control over that I can think of, Steve. I am paused. Okay, well, I've just paused now. Let me know if that gets better. I needed to know, though, what... Okay. Boy, that sentence doesn't make any sense. I have to make myself a note. Oh, Rose only sees a slight disconnect. Okay. I needed to know. I just posted this blog post and it makes no sense the way I said it. Let's see. The way I typed it makes no sense. I needed to know what I would really miss if I moved over to photos. That was more important than what I thought I would miss. I could read a lot of blogs, which I have, and hear a lot of complaints, which I have, and I could suffer the gloating by long-term Lightroom users, which I have, Mark, but I wouldn't know what really mattered to me unless I could try photos. I'm guessing that there are many out there who use Aperture or iPhoto and are reticent to move forward into photos until they know if it'll work for them. So I offer up my process so that perhaps it can help you decide when, if ever, to make the leap yourself. Well, I started on day 1 of 10.10.3 by hyperventilating and panicking. The moment had come when I had to actively figure out what to do. I had read that when you run photos, it will run through a process with your existing library, which, by the way, is the same library for Aperture and iPhoto. But from what I could glean, this is a one-time, one-pass process for any library you point to photos. From that point on, you can continue to open your old library with Aperture or iPhoto, but any changes you make there will not be reflected in the new and improved Photos application. So you're sort of kind of running two in parallel at that point, and I don't think you can put them back together again. I mean, I guess you could start over and delete your Photos one and re-import your Aperture library. That'd be even dumber. I wondered whether there was a way to, just dip my toe into the Photos pool without endangering my 370 gig photo library. And of course, I turned to Twitter to ask the question. In short order, my good friend Victor Cahiao suggested I ask Flarg for help. Flarg turns out to be known in real life as Peter Cohen, managing editor for imore.com. Peter turned out to be a wealth of information and directed me to a ton of great articles that he and others have written over at iMore. I had tried searching for just this kind of content, but articles with the title of Everything You Need to Know About Photos would invariably just hit the high points everyone else had covered before the final release and didn't have the fine points, the nitty-gritty details about what you can and cannot do. iMore stands well above the rest in their in-depth study of photos. So if you're looking for really, really good, tight, integrated, good, detailed information on photos, I really recommend you go over to imore.com. The iMore link. Oh yeah. I mean, there's so many links. Let's see. This is the one I was looking at. And there's one. Actually, that's probably not the one you want, Dorothy, but that was the one I was working on from going from Aperture over there. All right. Let me keep going. One of the biggest things I wanted to know was whether photos would preserve the file structure I'd created in Aperture. You might not realize this, but it turns out engineers are a little tiny bit anal retentive, and they like a lot of order and structure in their lives. I have folders for each year, and inside each folder is a subfolder for the quarter. So you'll see 2014, and inside that I'll have Q1 2014, Q2 2014, and on and on. Inside each folder, I create projects. Now, Aperture doesn't let you search by folder names, only projects. So my project names also include the year, month, and day. So project name might be 2014-04-20, my birthday. For most of my photos, that 3 layers deep is enough. But when I do a big trip, like the one we did to India, the structure gets even more complicated. I still want the year, quarter, and project name. But if I dump the thousands of photos I took on this trip into one giant project, I'd never be able to find anything. In this case, I use albums. In Aperture lingo, an album doesn't actually contain the photos themselves, but rather pointers to them. You might think of them more like tags or categories because photos can exist in more than one album at a time, but only in one project. I find this a useful way to keep track of the different pieces of a big event. For the big trip this year, I included an album for each of the separate cities we stayed in, so it was a little bit more manageable. My big question then was, how would photos handle this structure? What if it didn't support nested folders? What if it smashed all of my albums together and I'd never be able to remember whether we saw the tiger in Ranthambore or on the Brahmaputra River? Spoiler, we saw tigers in both places. Anyway, after reading everything I could on iMore's site, I got an idea. I remembered that in both Aperture and iPhoto, you can export a small portion, or large portion, I suppose, of your library to a separate one without disturbing your original library. I figured a great test would be to export just the 2015 folder, because that would have some 2-level deep stuff along with the 3-level deep stuff from the big vacation. Another important trick in this process is to hold down the Option key when you launch one of these applications. That lets you choose which library to open. This works in many applications from Apple like iTunes, Aperture, iPhoto, and also works in the new Photos app. I also thought for double secret protection, it would be a good idea to put this small library on an external drive to reduce confusion. Now, you remember I just happened to have bought that external $350 1 terabyte SSD from OWC, so this was a great option to get fast speeds and a safe place to test. I do have to say, running this test, it was nice and fast on that external SSD. It felt as fast as being on my internal SSD to me. I am delighted to report that through my testing, I was able to confirm that the conversion to Photos preserved my entire structure. It's not exactly the same, but it's very workable. First of all, Photos absolutely does allow nested folders. I can see a folder with 2015, a subfolder for 2015 Q1, and then a folder for the India vacation. It's even a little bit better than that. It's got little photo icons instead of folder icons. Now, it's an important point that I did have a folder for the India vacation. Remember, that was the project over in Aperture. So the project itself has turned into a folder. Now, remember I told you can't search on folder names in Aperture? Well, you can't in Photos either. That's not true. Sorry. All right. Okay. Hang on. I think you can. Remember, that was the project over in Aperture. But anyway. Did I save at any point here? Not getting audio studying the Podfeed page, but still a bit of lag. All right. Okay, get this to the right spot. Hang on. Now, it's an important point that I did have a folder for the India vacation. That's where I really wanted to cut it. Okay, stop it. That's what I want to do. All right. Now, that's an important point. The project itself has turned into a folder. Now, remember I said you can't search on folder names in Aperture? It turns out you can in Photos. Now, first I thought it couldn't, but then I figured out that there is a way to do the search, so that worked really, really well. When I looked in the folder from the vacation, I found albums inside, one replacing each of the old albums from Aperture. But there was also an album representing the entire vacation. So I have a folder with the name of the vacation and an album with the name of the vacation. When I do a search, it finds the album, but I think it's still working. It's a bit disconcerting, and I think it's just a different way of doing it. So I think I can probably get used to it. So I had a big sigh of relief that I'm not going to have to spend months and months and months renaming and reorganizing my giant Aperture library. Now it was time to see if the tools I depend on there are in Photos. So let's talk about what I'm going to lose, what I knew up front I was going to lose. I had already learned from Bart and others that brushes are not available in Photos. Brushes are really cool. Brushes allow you to brush in an effect to a specific area. Let's say I get a picture of Steve wearing a hat, and the whole photo looks perfect, but his face is too dark because it's in the shade. In Aperture, I can grab a Dodge brush and lighten it up. The brush can be hard-edged or soft. It can detect edges automatically if I want, and it's a non-destructive edit to the photo. It's really, really cool. And I probably use it about 3 or 4 times a year. And by the way, I do want to say this is only one example of what brushes can do. I know Bart uses it a lot to brush in color changes. I only figured out it could do that from him just pretty recently. He had said it hundreds of times, but I only listened a couple of times ago. And but I just don't do that. So I guess it's okay. Another feature of Aperture that Bart taught me was to use highlight hot and cold areas. The idea is that with a raw photo, you can expose the dramatically over and underexposed areas of a photo. By exposed, I mean you can show the under and overexposed areas of a photo. So let's say you have a lovely portrait of someone, but the sky is blown out behind them. That overexposed area will be coded in red, and you have a slider that can fix just that exposure without breaking the rest of the photo. Sometimes it can't get everything back, but it does a really good job in general. You can lower the exposure of the entire photo to get everything back, but it's a balancing act to do that. This is one of the tools that makes taking and storing raw photos worthwhile. I do use this a lot more often than the other tools I've mentioned, but really it's just a visual cue. The adjustment tools in photos are pretty extensive, so maybe I'll find what I need to fix photos, even if I can't see it with such dramatic visual cues. Well, the punchline is that after all this messing around, I decided this week it was time to make the jump in spite of all the questions left unanswered. Like Mika Pogue wrote to me on Twitter, as long as you back up like a boss, you can be confident enough to just go all in. It's my new favorite phrase, back up like a boss. So I ran a local backup of my home directory. I made sure CrashPlan had backed up my Aperture library too. Then I backed up my Aperture library to that external SSD. Then I backed up my Aperture library to our Drobo. If that's not like a boss, I don't know what is. I had like 4 or 5 backups, some of them in the cloud, some local, different drives. They're all over the place. I then opened Photos with the Option key held down, and this time I picked my real Aperture library. As I often do, I asked Stephen Getz to hold my hand and help me get the nerve to jump. Theoretically, he's in Canada, but anyway, he's always there for me in these things. I think he likes seeing me jump and do things. He's the one to help me buy my camera. I like spending other people's money too. Anyway, I knew that Photos would take a while, so I just hid the window and I just checked in on it every 15 minutes or so. And I was rewarded an hour and 28 minutes later with a working Photos library. Now, an hour and 28 minutes sounds like forever, but remember, it was converting 372 gigabytes of photos. Now, what kind of fun would this be if I didn't turn on iCloud photo sharing too? All right. You guys having fun over here? I haven't talked to you for a while. Steve's asked me in the back channel whether the multiple feeds could be a problem, but I'm feeding once to Google Hangouts on Air, and that is feeding into poptea.com/live and separately to, sorry, my nose itches, over to Alpha Geek Radio Video. And I don't think that should be, that shouldn't be adding extra load on my machine that I know of. My CPU is not bad. I mean, Google Chrome's being ridiculous, using more than 100%, but nothing. Wait, why is CrashPlan talking again? Check CrashPlan. I checked it once and it was not running. Somewhere different between AGR and the Hangouts. Oh, it is running the backup again. Stop it. Okay. Let me know whether that changed anything. After it started, after I checked it, it started doing the backup after all. Oh yeah, Shai. Shai is saying that there's a little menu next to the light option and it opens up more advanced features. But even better, under View, I think. I don't want to open Photos right now because it might start uploading photos while I'm doing the live show. But you can turn on a lot more controls too, like levels is in there. So there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. Yeah, there definitely is contrast in there, John. Where Shai said, but there's lots more stuff you can turn on. Super fun. I'm a fan of levels. I've always wanted that. I couldn't remember if it's in Aperture and I just missed it. It probably was there all along, but I never used it in there. But I really like levels in Photoshop. All right. I knew it was going to cost me $10 a month to turn it on, and because of the giant size of my library, and there'd be little hope of going backwards if it all went horribly wrong. But again, that lure of all my photos available on every device is too delicious to pass up. In fact, this is one of the main reasons I didn't want to start using Lightroom, so I figured I'd better go for it. Well, again, the coolest thing about Photos and iCloud photo sharing is it allows you to keep full resolution versions of your photos on your main Macintosh, but to have optimized versions on your other devices. You get the thumbnail view of all of them, but you can tap on them and it sends you a higher res version. I'm not sure if it brings in the full res version or just a slightly higher res version. I heard it was optimized for the size of the device. I think that's the way it works. I flipped the switch and my Mac went into super high gear, alternating between preparing photos and uploading them. I caught a screen grab at one point where it said it was uploading 47,241 items. I don't think that's all my photos, but sure has been chewing away on my bandwidth, and my fans have been worrying about like crazy ever since I started doing this. I let it run all night the first night, and I was delighted to look on my iPad and find thousands of photos there, all searchable by album and photo names. I found it of interest that it was going backwards in time through the years. So at first, 2015 to 2008 were all there, but I could see photos popping up under 2007 with blanks for the years prior to 2007. Now it's kind of appearing that there's blanks other places too, so I'm not exactly sure what it's doing, but I had to take a break for a couple of days while I went out of town, so I'm not sure where it is, but it is still going, and I started it, it's probably been going for 48 hours total. Anyway, like I said, sadly, we had to go off to Santa Barbara wine tasting for the weekend, so I had to pause that upload while I was on my precious cellular data. I know you feel really bad for me, right? Well, Dorothy and Sabine have both talked about how they like to control their own photo libraries with folder structures in the Finder. I'm delighted that Photos will definitely allow you to manage your photos as a reference library. That means that it won't drag them all into a blob that you can't peer into and micromanage like people who are even more anal retentive than me. But remember that even if you do let Photos suck them all inside, you can still do a show package contents from the Finder on your library and drill in if you really want to get to an original file. Now, I have read a warning that if you want to do this reference library thing, I think you can't do the iPhoto, iCloud, iPhoto, or what is it called? iPhoto? No, I'll get it yet. Photos, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. You can't do that if you do referenced files. But then again, I know Dorothy would never put her photos in the cloud that way anyway, so I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not sure about Sabine. Well, the graphical displays of Photos is much prettier and more modern than Aperture. The layout takes advantage of the fact that we have wide screens now, so the thumbnails are shown to you vertically along the left side of the screen next to the sidebar with all the folders, so you don't lose that precious vertical space like you did in Aperture. I should mention that you can view and hide the sidebar as well. People are flipped out about the lack of controls in Photos. However, if you go into edit mode, you have a very simple set of controls, but if you start tapping on the little tick marks, you get more and more granular control. Like John was asking about in the chat room, and Shai answered him, you couldn't see the contrast functions at the top level, but if you start tapping those little tick marks, you get a lot more control. Specifically under light is where you get most of them. If you go into the adjustments and tap on add, you can see a ton more controls than the Photos defaults. Now, it's not nearly as much as you can get in Aperture, but it's pretty extensive. You get 6 controls under light, things like exposure, highlights, and black point. 3 under color, saturation, contrast, and cast. 4 if you want to change to black and white. 3 sharpen controls, 1 each for definition and noise reduction. 3 for how you want a vignette applied. 3 ways to set light balance, and even a levels control that allows 5 points in the histogram to be modified. That's an awful lot of stuff that you can do in there. All right, well, I'm going to have to cut myself off on Photos. I could easily keep going, but I want to settle in with more day-to-day usage before I declare a win or loss on it here. I guarantee I'll be talking about it more. I've got a whole bunch more notes I've already written, but we aren't going to play those today. Kevin's here. I need to send him a really quick note. Let's see. In just a second. Okay. All right, sorry. I caught you sneaking in there. All right. So now let's see. All right. It's time for Clarify ad here. Wait, what is that, Steve? Getting the audio files ready for the first 2 reviews. Yeah, but it's too late, Steve. I'm past where I was going to play those. So we're just going to keep going. We're going to do those reviews next week. That's fine. There's time. Chit Chat Across the Pond is 44 minutes. Security Light is 20 minutes. 32? Is it really 32? This isn't good. Yeah, we've got an hour and 15 minutes of just me and Bart. All right. Here we go. Well, if you've been listening to the show for any length of time, you've heard me talk about my favorite tool, Clarify, for making tutorials with photos and text and annotations. One thing I don't talk about very often is all the ways you can present the tutorials you create with Clarify. I'm poking around on the Clarify-It website today, and I realized that there are lots more formats than I normally think about. First, you can publish your tutorial to your own free site at clarify-it.com. So I've got one, it's clarify-it.com/NosillaCast, and then you get a little code at the end for each tutorial. You can store your tutorials inside Evernote, which I've mentioned before, so you essentially have a database of your content. You can publish to WordPress as a page or a post, and I do them as pages all the time. But you can also simply get the entire HTML content and images so you can post it on other blogging platforms. You can publish to a beautiful PDF with the built-in templates, or you can even create your own templates. For some reason, I've never done that. I keep saying I'm going to, but I haven't done it yet. Are you stuck with people who love Microsoft Word? Sorry about that. But anyway, Clarify has output for Word as well. Maybe you're a big fan of Dropbox. I didn't even realize this till today. You can share it to Dropbox, get a public URL that you can instantly send to anyone. The greatest benefit of Clarify is the ability to share your knowledge so that you can help other people, keep them from asking you the same question over and over again, and make yourself look positively brilliant. Because you are, of course, brilliant, but not everyone knows that yet. Go check out the free trial of Clarify over at clarify-it.com for Mac and Windows, and be sure to tell them that Allison sent you, just like Stefan Lesage did this week. Nurse is back. Hey, Nurse, how are you? TT4 Mac is back. Wow, we're getting some fun people hanging out in here. All right. So we're going to play Chit Chat music twice. Yeah. Tyson, where have you been? And Shai, did you tell us, are you in Alaska now? Can't believe we weren't in Vegas when we went to NAB. Let's see. So we are going to actually play, well, we should discuss this. What do you think, Steve? We have twice I'm going to introduce Chit Chat Across the Pond, but there's a reason for it. Bart and I did Chit Chat Across the Pond twice. We did Security Light today. That part of their building. Let's see. Okay, so let me see. Okay, get ready for your symbols check, Steve. Are you ready? You ready? Ready? He's never ready. Tell him time and time again. Okay, here we go. Oh, okay. You're in LA? Really, Shy? You're here? Really? You're in LA? You're nearby? Allison sent you, just like Stefan Lesage did this week. That time of the week again, it's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond, and this is going to be a really confusing double set of stuff here, right today, Bart?
Why, we're time traveling-ish, I think.
Yeah, so today is Sunday the 19th, and we're doing Security Light and Security Medium, and intro words are clipped. What do you mean by clipped? What is clipped? Okay, play it again. It's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond, and this is going to be a really confusing double set of stuff here, right today, Bart?
Why, we're time traveling-ish, I think.
Yeah, so today is Sunday the 19th, and we're doing Security Light and Security
Okay,
Medium.
good.
And but in a few minutes, you're okay. I want to check what the how's their time? 5:45. Okay, I better keep moving. So I didn't think it was that long. Oh man, this show is going to be so long. Hang
Really
on.
high quality. They're really nice t-shirts.
Ooh, I haven't done that. Maybe I need to up my game a little bit.
So
All
yeah, I donated enough to get a t-shirt, and I'm really happy with my t-shirt. So
Okay, very, very cool. All right, I am going to hand us off. Get ready. We're going to cue the music to come back again now. Okay, so I did say I'm going to cue the music back in because we're going to start it again. So I'm going to drop in the same jingle. Let's see how this sounds. We're going to drop it again. God, it show's over an hour. It's 57 minutes, and I haven't started chit chat yet. Okay, let's see. Back again now. Okay, and then I'm going to go get this one. This is going to be the longest show of all time. Steve, I think it's good we didn't have the audio ready. Okay, I got to wait for that to catch up. I'm going to hand us off. Get ready. We're going to cue the music to come back again now. Because, I mean, it's really easy to do that.
I really don't want to go down the Evil Empire route.
Wait. That's the wrong file. What the heck? Oh, that's the wrong file. That's the wrong file. Where's the real file? That was 44 seconds. Please be in the right place. Oh, this isn't good, you guys. Oh no, this is not good. We have a serious problem. Oh, this isn't good. This is not good. Okay, when did I record that? There it is. Where is it? Oh, found it. Whew. Okay. That one is 50 minutes. Okay, good. Whew. All right. That was a panic moment. I dragged the wrong yeah. That was scary. Okay. So I think I want to move that out just a smidge. Okay, now I can see the waveforms, which you guys can't see, so you don't know why I'm doing this. Okay, let's the music again. Are we ready? All right. We're going to cue the music to come back again now. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond, and this is definitely a time travel episode if we've ever done it before, huh, Bart?
Yes, I don't know when we are, but hello.
So we recorded yesterday in Taming the Terminal part 31 of N, but I made Bart stop just a smidge early, so we're going to finish that up, and then we're going to start up on Taming the Terminal part 32 of N. But in between those two, I did a recording that's going to be in the week between these, so I don't know when we are either.
The future.
But unless people may have heard some Security Light, but maybe not. We don't know. Because it hasn't existed.
Point in the future, depending on what blows up.
Which will have occurred before now when they're hearing us. Got it? Okay, good. Mark is here, so we can pretty much be almost done with the show. Yeah, so, well, the time travel thing's really confusing. I don't understand that. I just couldn't figure out where I'd put the file that I meant to be using. So I did get it. So I don't understand why I couldn't see it. He was there all along. Okay, let's see. This is Security Light. Let's see. All right. So now how long is the show? An hour and 46 minutes. So Steve, I think it's good we don't have the audio from the interviews. Oh, jeez. That is a record. Really, you were mowing the lawn instead of watching the show. You don't even like the show anymore. And I made fun of you twice during the show already. All right. All right, here we go. Time to bring in the ending. All right.
Seth, most of our SSHing done, a little bit more to do. I have no idea when it's going to be. Not a clue. Whenever it is, happy computing.
Well, I do believe we have a marathon episode behind us here, an hour and 47 minutes. Did anybody wish that we had added in the interviews from NAB? I think it's a good thing that we held off on that. I do believe Shai is asking, is this a record in the live chat? I do believe this is a record. It's the longest show. So that is going to wind us up for this week. Many thanks to our sponsor for helping to pay the bills, the makers of Clarify over at clarify-it.com. Do not forget to send in your dumb questions, comments, and suggestions. Maybe you have dumb questions about photos that I can help you figure out. You can send those in to Allison@podfeet.com and follow me on Twitter @podfeet. Check out the NosillaCast Google Plus community. That's been a great place for me. I asked a question in there about something about photos I was going to talk about this week, but luckily I waited, and Doug Ingram and Alistair Jenks both helped me out, so I'm not going to look like an idiot next week on the show. Anyway, NosillaCast Google Plus community is almost 400 people in there helping each other. It's fantastic. You can get to that by going to podfeet.com/Google Plus. If you want to join in the fun of the live show, like, let's see, Tyson came back after a long time, and who else has been gone for a while? Nuris has been gone. We had a really good time in here. Anyway, you can get to that by going to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCast castaways. Thanks for listening, and stay subscribed. All right. And also, Mark, the other thing you don't know is that we are live on Alpha Geek Radio Video. Radio on video, as Kirshen said. Oh, and it was Kirshen who was here, and I hadn't seen in a long time, but Kirshen must have left. Oh, no, she is there. Sorry, Kirshen. I meant to say your name. Apologize for that. Oh, well. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? It's hard to get good help. Midnight Dialogue long. Yeah, so if you have a Roku, actually, Steve, can you take a picture of the Roku app? I want to see what that looks like, because I can't see it, because if I leave, this will be an empty chair. So I have a face made for radio. Let's see. Friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCast castaways. Thanks for listening, and stay subscribed. Yeah, that was posted really fast, Brett. That's cool. You're a Patreon of Bart's. I love that. Everybody should be Bart's Patreon. Even if you don't watch his shows, you should watch or listen to his shows. His shows are fantastic. For the audience who may or may not have seen me before, that is Let's Talk Photography and Let's Talk Apple, both at lets-talk.ie. So again, NosillaCast castaways. Thanks for listening, and stay subscribed. All right, who is your? No idea who your is. Who would that be? All right, editing video. I think I'm going to try to get back to doing more interesting video where we get the live chat and stuff in there. I think Boinks has a cool product that I want to try using. Boinks.tv. I'm going to beta test it. They'll wreck everything. 19. In 19. I think we're gonna have a. Oh, you won't be back for 5 months. Shy, you're such a tease. Oh, it is Pat. I was wondering if that might be you. Pat's line is your Mac doctor, and that's why she's your. Selecting. Boy, it's a lot of me talking. That is so good. We didn't do our interviews. It's great. Hi K, hi D. You're going to have to go through the whole alphabet here. All right, it is 6 minutes to 6. I am creating the mix down of the show. Pat, I put a note in, where did I put that? I think I put in Google Plus that you've been recommending. Oh, no, it was in Mac Geek app that you've been recommending Adaware Medic. A lot of people are getting those darn pop-ups going on. Steve got hit with it, and that was nasty. All right, I do believe that we have, no, Where did I just output that? Oh, no, I didn't export. Did I? I didn't export. You can hear me clear now. Oh, great. All right. All right, so we are creating Mixdown. I could have sworn I just did that. Let me see. Make sure I only find one copy of NC_2015_04. Didn't I just say I just did that? Yeah. I don't know what I did. Maybe that was the join that was going on. Start moving your mouth before the sound comes out. All right. Hey, who else is going to the Midwest Mac Barbecue? I'm about ready to do my plane tickets. Brett's in for sure. Kevin, you going to do it? June 20th. Got a picture of your AGR video. Oh, goody. I want to see that. That's pretty cool. Steve wanted to wait a week to do it carefully, and I said, nah, no guts, no glory, right? Yeah. And pay your shareware person, Attaware Medic. Pat recommends give it a try, and if it saves you, you better belly up to the bar with some money. I think you should. It's a good thing to do. You don't have to, of course, but hey, that's a great model that they've got there. So it's AttawareMedic.com that Pat recommends. Still have to have a possibility. All right, good. It is June 20th at Barry Falk's house. He hasn't published yet where that is, but if you go MidwestMacBBQ.com, he's got a blurb about how it's going to work. And I happen to know that there's going to be a little expo with tech talks beforehand. So the barbecue starts around 2 or 3, and in the morning there's going to be sessions. I'm going to be teaching one. It looks like Dave Hamilton, Chuck Joyner. I forget who else is going to be speaking. Julie Keel is going to be speaking. So that should be pretty cool. So that's going to be in the morning. So there's going to be, I don't know how much he's going to charge for that, because I know he has to pay to rent the place, and he's going to have snacks and stuff. So anyway, that should be pretty cool. I am really looking forward to it. Haven't booked our tickets yet, but we do plan on doing that for sure. All right. Well, it is 5:57, and I don't want to stop on anybody else. No, ORD? I thought ORD was Florida, Steve. So ORD, Chicago? All right, you got your Amtrak tickets and hotel reservations. Boom. Yeah, and Barry has booked, he's got a rate at a hotel there too. So you got to do it. You got to do it. All right, so I do now have an output file. No, I don't. No, I have that one. There we go. All right, I do have the right file, 1.16 gigabytes. Holy cannoli. All right, I better ship out here. It is 5:58, and so nice to have everybody here. Nice to see you here again, Shai and Kirshen, and thanks so much for asking Jason Snell about me. You got to take full credit for when he's on the show, when I get to be on Clockwise. It's going to be really fun. It's not next week. I think it's the week after that. All right, I'm going to cut us off right here, and we'll talk to you again next week. Where do I cut us off? All right, I'm going to cut off the app people first, I think. Goodbye. And then I'm going to cut off Alpha Geek Radio, Alpha Geek Video. Goodbye. And I'm cutting off the Hangout on Air. Bye, everybody.